what exactly is the toolkit? Well, the toolkit, and you can go and you can download it. And in fact, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to take a link for that toolkit and I'm going to put it up in chat. And the reason why I'm going to wait 10 minutes is that when I put links in chat, if somebody joins the meeting after the link went up, they don't see it. So I'm going to wait a few more minutes and put that link up for the toolkit in chat. But what I want you to download it and print it out. It's only 3 pages. And as we teach different tools and techniques, I want you to add that tool to the toolkit, right? And the toolkit is built around 4 concepts. If you were with us last week, we said there's 4 main tasks of influential communication. 4 things we're trying to accomplish. Number 1, build trust and rapport. Without trust, without rapport, without people liking you and trusting you, you will not be able to influence them. And that is our primary job in communicating, is to create influence. And you know what, Barbara, I just see you in, I see you in chat. I will put that link right up in chat in a few minutes for you to download. And if you don't get it, just reach out to me. I'll be happy to send it to you.
Thank you so much.
Building trust and building rapport, number 1 task. Without that, we can go nowhere in communication. Once we start to build trust and rapport, the next task is to try to help create clarity. The number 1 the reason why people don't take action and make decisions is they get confused and they are ambivalent. And the thing that we've got to do in our communication is to create clarity so that people can make decisions and to take action. Step number 3, once we've created that clarity, is we've got to facilitate that decision. And step 4 is inspire that action. And there's different techniques and different tools that you will use for each one of these different areas. And so the toolkit that I created basically takes all these 4 different categories. And as we introduce a new tool, you're going to write it into the lines next to that category so you know when I'm trying to accomplish this task, here's the tools in my toolkit that I can use. And today we're talking about mirroring and matching. And that's going to be a tool that's going to go largely into your toolkit to help you create trust and to help you build rapport. And mirroring and matching will also help you create some clarity from time to time. But by and large, this is a tool that's used for building trust, building rapport. It's 10 after. Did Jason sneak in from Bond Street yet? I don't know that he has. So if he has not, I'm just going to go and find this toolkit for you. And here it is as a PDF. And I'm just loading this PDF up in chat. Tell me if you see it now. It should be right there. And if you see that influential language and communications PDF, oops, you know what? I think I sent it just to Barbara because when she texted me, it defaulted to just respond back to her. So let me put it for everyone and load it up here again. Hold on. I'm going to go to my computer, going to find the toolkit. Tell me if you see it now in the chat. Hopefully. Going once, going twice. It says to everyone. Anna says yes. Pearl says yes. Okay, you should be able to download that and print it off from your computer. If you are on an iPhone or a tablet and not able to do that, just email me later. Or I should have hopefully sent you an email yesterday announcing what we were going to talk about today, and it was in that email as well. But either way, reach out to me. So let's talk about mirroring and matching. Well, back to some of the basics here. Back to some of the basics. What we said last time, Mehrabian's role of communication, studied at the University of Southern California, Los Angeles in the late 1960s, early 70s. When decoding communication, we find that only 7% of communication is the words. Mirroring and matching the right kinds of words is important. We're going to talk more about that tomorrow. But mirroring and matching the words, what the words are, is important, but not as important as how those words, the vocal elements of how we communicate those words. 38% of communication is how we say those words, how we use this instrument here called the voice. 55% of communication is the nonverbals that we give off, the emotional energy that we give off, the vibe that we give off. And this is going to factor in again and again and again to all the different tools that we're going to teach you. The tools of mirroring and matching today are based in the awareness of something that is part of how the brain works. There are these neurons in the brain. Anybody study brain science and is familiar with the concepts of mirror neurons, what a mirror neuron is? Anybody familiar with a mirror neuron? You can just put a thumbs up in chat. If not, I'm going to teach you something new today. What a mirror neuron is, there's neurons in the brain that actually fire when, I'll read it the definition to you, then give you a practical example. A mirror neuron is a neuron that fires when an animal acts and when another animal observes the same action performed by another. Thus, the mirror neuron mirrors the reaction, right? I do something, you react to it. Such neurons have been observed in human beings, in primates, in birds. And what we've come to learn about mirror neurons is that they enable us to reflect body language, facial expression, to communicate emotions back and forth to each other. When I express sadness, you're likely to feel sadness because it's the mirror neurons which are being triggered. And what we've come to learn about these mirror neurons is that they're incredibly important in development of our social lives. They're really important in the development of child development, as well as relationships and educations, right? The mirror neurons are at the heart of what we're going to talk about today, which is mirroring and matching. So let me give you a real practical example of how mirror neurons work. You guys, can you all see my screen here? Can you see me? You see me here? Let me just turn this share off for just a second. I'm going to stop the share for just a second, and I'm going to put me on speaker view. Do you see me now bigger than you did before? Hopefully. Sorry about that. A couple lemons. A couple lemons here. And here's a lemon, and it's a pretty good slice of lemon, a wedge of lemon. And as I smell it, I can smell how lemony it is, and it's juicy. You can sort of squeeze it, and you can see the lemon juice come right out of it. And if I was to take this lemon and just, put that lemon in my mouth, it's sour. Did anybody, as I did that, find themselves salivating? Did anybody, as I did that, find themselves puckering up a little bit? Just put in chat whether you experienced that as I tasted the lemon. Did you experience that? I see some hands go up. I see some yeses in chat. It tasted sour, Pearl says. You tasted a little bit, Scott says. That is your mirror neurons in action. That's how it works. And once we learned that these neurons were part of the brain, we started to think about all kinds of things in terms of how do they impact communication. And so we go back to the PowerPoint, and we recognize, again, the way that the brain works. The brain is constantly looking for patterns. It constantly has biases. Erin is joining the room. Let me let her in. We said last time, I'm going to recap, that the brain is always looking for safety and security. And what we believe is that things that are predictable, patterns, when I see a pattern and I understand what's going on, it is safe. I feel safety in consistency in patterns. The brain is constantly evaluating, is this a dangerous situation? Is this a safe situation? And we're looking for patterns to recognize that. Language has patterns. The way we speak, the words we use, the speed, all of that creates patterns. Patterns that are familiar are safe. Patterns that are not familiar create fear. The similarity bias is one that says that people who sound like us and speak like us probably are a little bit like us. And people who are like us are more likely to be safe and predictable. We go back to communication and influence. If we're trying to influence people to make decisions and to take actions, we need to communicate safety and likability and trust. And the language patterns that we use when we speak and sound and use words that are similar to the people that we're talking to, it triggers that. It triggers those mirror neurons. As sure as when I sucked on that lemon, you felt the little pucker in your mouth, it is the exact same phenomenon in the brain. Let's look at these patterns. Can anybody tell by looking at these four patterns what kind of an animal we're looking at? Does anybody know? Who can unmute and tell me what animals you think you see there?
Zebra and a giraffe.
A zebra and a giraffe. Any others?
Dalmatian.
Dalmatian. What was the other one?
Tiger.
The tiger. With very little information. with very little information. You saw the beginning of a pattern and you were right. It was a Dalmatian, it was a tiger, it was a zebra, it was a giraffe. And so what we know is that many, many times, the patterns that we see don't need to be big, long patterns. Simple patterns of mirroring and of matching can create that sense of, I know what that is, I feel safe. Now, keep in mind, patterns and assumptions can sometimes work in negative ways because we're quick to make assumptions with very limited data many, many times. I'll give you an example here. Let's take a look at this woman who is standing out, looking off into kind of a void there. What is the image? How does that feel? What's the feel that you get when you look? What do you think she's experiencing? What do you think she's thinking about when you look at that somewhat of a bleak landscape, or maybe not bleak? Does anybody have a sense or a mood or a tone of what you're seeing when she's looking out that way? Anybody want to take a guess of how she might be feeling, what she might be thinking?
What are we looking at?
Do you see this picture of this woman right here?
No.
Okay, let's go back into the screen share and see, what are you not looking at? Let's go back. This is why I say, if you're not seeing, do you see her now?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're looking at this pattern of this woman with blonde hair looking out. What's the vibe that she's giving off? What do you think she's experiencing? What we said was, you saw those patterns before of Dalmatians and tigers, just a couple little dots or a couple little stripes, and you saw the whole picture. What's the picture here?
It's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell. So maybe we should ask her.
No.
And when we look at her, she turns around. We found out that it wasn't a her after all. It was a he.
Oh.
And yet the pattern recognition was long blonde hair. And I said, what is she looking at? That was enough for you to make the assumption that you were looking at a woman, when in fact, you were looking at this guy. Sometimes we can make the wrong assumptions with limited data, with limited pattern. And that can be a real problem for us. You know, it was blind spots that created, it was Mark Twain who said, it ain't what you know that gets you into trouble, it's what you know for sure that just ain't so. We are full of blind spots because we make assumptions with very limited data. We think we know the whole picture, and many, many times we're wrong. And that has terrible consequences in society as it relates to race and culture and Facebook feeds and all kinds of stuff that I'm not going to get into today. My point is this: we know that this is the way that the brain works. We have to guard against our blind spots, but we need to also leverage that mirroring is powerful. And so there's two kinds of mirroring we're going to talk about today. There's mirroring and there's matching, and they're subtly different. Here's the difference between the two. Matching is when you copy the exact gesture or behavioral pattern, and you copy it and you do it exactly. Now, if it's a physical behavioral pattern, we'll look at crossed legs here for a second. Are you guys still with me on the PowerPoint? Do you see the two legs being crossed here?
Yes. Yes.
When someone crosses their legs in a behavioral matching scenario, what we would do is we'd wait about 3 to 5 seconds and we would cross our legs. Right? Physical gestures. We copy them after a couple of seconds. There's a little bit of a lag time. When you lean forward, after a couple of seconds, I lean forward. When you lean back, I lean back. Vocal matching is something that we do in real time, vocal gestures, right? When someone speaks louder, we speak louder. When they speak softer, we speak softer. Matching is when we copy the pattern exactly, but that's different from mirroring. What is mirroring? Mirroring is when you behave in a similar way, but it's not exactly the same. Mirroring linguistically has to do with things like when we're doing reflective listening and someone says, it sounds to me like this is what you're feeling. They're not saying exactly what you said. They're holding a mirror up and they are kind of reflecting back what you said in a different way. It's similar, but it's different. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about language representational style. Different people see the world and represent the world in different ways. Some people are more visual. Some people are more auditory. Some people are more what we call kinesthetic. And when you learn how to listen for the patterns of that language and speak back to them in a similar language, you're hitting the mirror neurons. You're creating a sense of of connection, right? And it's a skill that needs to be learned. Now, vocal mirrors, reflective statements, right? Reflective listening. It sounds to me like what I'm hearing you say is these are vocal mirrors, right? These are not vocal matches. Matches are where we're going to match the intonation and the volume and the rate of speech. But these are mirrors. And so what I want to do is recognize that when I'm in rapport with somebody and I reflect back a mirror that's wrong, Miriam, it sounds to me like that really made you angry. No, you know what, Hal? It didn't make me as angry as it made me disappointed. When I've got rapport, people will correct you in your inaccurate mirrors and allow you to have a better understanding and a better connection and better communication. There's another kind of mirroring that I'm going to teach you today that we're going to work with that's called the last three words mirror. What are the last three words? It's if I make a statement, you reflect back the last three words, and you can either reflect it back as a question, the last three words with your inflection going up, or the last three words being said as a statement. And the questioning one, the inflection going up, sort of is a statement that allows people to say, tell me more about what you mean there. The statement, the last three words, as a statement, invites people to tell you more. For example, let me give you an example. If we were talking about the end of the day and I was having a conversation with my wife, she says, so tell me what you did today. Well, you know what? I kind of did this wacky experiment. I kind of took this lemon and I sucked on this lemon on the Zoom camera today, and the lemon tasted sour. And if she said, the lemon tasted sour, as a question, it sort of is the same as, what do you mean by that? And I would say, yeah, it tasted sour. I mean, I put it in my mouth and God, my eyes started to water and I could feel myself salivating. My cheeks were sucking in. It allows me to explain what I mean when you reflect that with a question. And if she said, if I said to her, yeah, my day, I did this experiment, I tasted the lemon, it tasted really sour. And if she made it as a statement, the lemon tasted sour. Yeah, it did taste sour. And you know what? I don't like that taste. I don't think I'm going to do that experiment again on Zoom. I'm not sure if it really was as powerful as I was hoping it would be, but it allows me to expand more. And these are mirroring techniques. So there's two different kinds of vocal mirrors. The first is the reflective listening mirrors, where we give reflective statements like, it sounds like you said, what I think I'm hearing. We're holding a mirror up. We're not copying it exactly. The other mirror is the last three words or the basic idea, right? If I said that lemon tasted really sour, the last three words would have been tasted really sour. It wouldn't have worked. You get the idea. But these are two different mirrors. And when we learn how to mirror back and hit those mirror neurons in our communication, that sense of connectedness that says, you feel like me, I feel like we're in connection with each other, gets deeper and stronger. That's a skill that we need to learn how to do. So we're going to play. I said we're going to get into breakout rooms. And here's how I want to do this. I'm going to get into rooms of about 2. Now, I've set these breakout rooms up so that when I create the breakout rooms, I'm not going to record the breakout rooms, right? So you don't have to worry about that. But when I set out the breakout rooms, what's going to happen is I'm going to set it up so that we get people into rooms of about 2 people each. And it looks like in order to make that work, I've got to create about 8 rooms, which means some of you may have 3. But I want you to pair up as best as you can. I want one of you to be an interviewer, and I want one of you to be an interviewee. And for just 10 minutes, I want the interviewer to ask their partner to talk a little bit about a favorite vacation or a trip they've been on, or to talk about an event that they experienced that made them angry or upset, or to interview them around something that they're looking forward to in the future. So do we follow so far? If you're the interviewee, your partner is going to interview about 1 of 3 things, either a favorite vacation or a trip. So start thinking ahead, a favorite vacation or trip that you've been on, an event that made you angry or upset, or something that you're looking forward to in the future. And for the interviewer, ask lots of questions. The who, what, where, when, why, how questions. Really try to understand. Really try to communicate, to listen, to understand what that experience was like. All right, this is going to be the mirroring exercise. Now, instructions for the interviewer. Use reflective statements when the person is talking, when they're talking about their favorite trip or the thing that made them mad or the thing that they're looking forward to. Interviewers, use reflective statements. It sounds like this is what I'm hearing, right? Practice using the last 3 word mirrors. The last 3 words, question, the last 3 words, statement. But that's the extent of the instructions. We're going to play with this. This is a lab, right? We're going to get into groups. And the way that I've set this up, hopefully, if I've done this correctly, as I create these breakout rooms, what's going to happen is everyone is going to automatically go into the breakout room. We're going to set the breakout room for only 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, it's going to end. What will happen is you're going to get a heads up, probably at the last 60 seconds, a little thing is going to pop up on the screen that says the breakout room is going to end. We're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about what this exercise was like. This is going to just match you up automatically. It doesn't, I'm not manually picking who we're going to pair people up with. But do you understand where this exercise goes over the next 10 minutes? One of you interview the other and do it for about 5 minutes and then change roles. So I'll probably send a message about 5 minutes in, even if you're not done with your interview, to change roles, because I want both of you to practice asking the reflective questions. I want both of you to practice asking the last 3 word summary inflection, the last 3 word statement mirrors. Everybody get where we're going here? Get a feel for it? Okay, I'm going to pop in back and forth between the rooms to see how this is going. It's only going to be 10 minutes. We're going to come back automatically into the main room, but I'm going to send you on your way, all right? And so when you get to your room, if you don't know who the person who you're there with, introduce yourself. One of you quickly decide to be the interviewer, one of you be the interviewee. You'll both get a chance to try both roles. Here we go. Breakouts are always interesting, right? The technology, I think, sometimes paired people up. I think there might have been 1 or 2 people that for a period of time were by themselves. I hope we got that corrected. But I want to talk a little bit. This is a quick. We're going to do one more breakout in a minute, but this is a quick one of just kind of listening to the other person's story and looking for opportunities to how to mirror. So let me ask you, who were my interviewers? Who were the interviewers? Okay. If you were an interviewer, what I want to ask you is this. How easy was it to use these kind of reflective statements? How easy was it to listen to what your person was saying and to kind of encapsulate that into, it sounds like, if what I'm hearing correctly is, somebody on mute talked about how easy that was to do. Did it come naturally?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It was natural.
Came pretty natural, came pretty easy?
Yeah, pretty easy.
How about the 3 word summaries? It's the 3 word inflection or the 3 word statements. Not a typical way that we've been taught to mirror and match. Were those as easy or were those a little bit more work?
I had to listen harder and remember to do it. So it's like kind of interviewing and asking questions, but I had to remember to make that connection.
Yeah.
Just going ahead and asking the questions.
And Scott, one of the things I'll tell you about that is both of these mirrors work really well, but that 3 word summary inflection, that 3 word summary statement, it serves as a little bit of a pattern interrupt, meaning it's not the way that we typically mirror each other. And because it's different, it can be more effective. It is actually one of the ones that the police negotiators are taught to use. FBI hostage negotiators are taught to rely on that one a lot, because when you're talking to someone on the other end of the phone and you summarize the last couple of words with a statement or the last couple of words with a question, it keeps them talking. And so that is just one that I love you to listen to practice more. Now for the interviewees, the people that were being interviewed, how natural did your interviewer sound? Did they sound natural and free and easy, or did it seem a little bit forced, like they were kind of really listening hard and it wasn't as conversational as a normal conversation? Anybody?
I think it was a lot of fun talking to my interviewer. I mean, it just seems very easy, and we were able to connect.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, it came easily. Good. Anybody else? What I heard a couple of people say in the rooms, and I tried to jump back in between some of the rooms, was that you almost have to listen on two levels. I'm listening for what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm listening for how am I going to respond? What mirror am I going to hold up? Am I going to use the it sounds like mirror? I think what I'm hearing mirror, or when you complete a statement, can I piggyback on those last three words and use that mirror back? And so part of the challenge and the practice skill in really mirroring and matching at a high level is really listening for content, getting the information, but also listening for which mirror am I going to use? And that takes practice. It's a little awkward at first, right? A little awkward at first. And so I'm going to give you guys an assignment. I don't know if you can see the PowerPoint still. I hope you can. But the assignment is, I want you to try another reflective conversation today. Somebody, somewhere before you put your head on the pillow today, have a conversation with them. And as you're listening to what they're saying, try to reflect back what you're hearing, either in those summary statements, what I think I hear is, it sounds like, or to try to practice those three-word summaries. Okay? Here's somebody jumping in. Is that feedback or someone got a question?
Hal, I have a question. This is a very basic question, and that is, what is the overall goal of using these techniques? Again, this is a basic question.
This is the tool that we're putting in the toolkit of building rapport and trust. One of the very first tasks of communication is to get people to like us and to trust us so that they can listen to us and so that we can feel safe enough for them to allow us to influence them. And so to learn how to use these techniques of mirroring are ways in the very beginning that we build rapport, that we build relationship with people that we don't know. That's the toolkit. So, and it's one of many tools that we're going to teach you on how to build relationship and build rapport. It's just one of the tools in the toolkit. And so when you're in the beginning of a conversation with somebody who you don't know, now we'll put it into a real estate context, an open house guest, an expired listing who you're calling and speaking to for the first time. And you're trying to build rapport. How can I mirror and match what they're saying? How can I mirror and match using the summary technique or the last three-word technique as a way of hitting those mirror neurons in the brain and causing a sense of connection to happen faster? Because if we don't connect quickly, we're going to generate resistance, right? Does it make sense?
You want to say that you have to do that from the first meeting and the first minute you meet someone?
Well, what I'm going to say is we're going to teach you several different techniques for building rapport, and this is one of them. And so, for example, let's put this into the context of an open house, and maybe we'll not do another breakout. Just in the interest of time, we can save the second breakout for tomorrow. Let's think about open houses. We're having an open house. Somebody's coming in. We're walking through the open house, and we ask them some of those probing questions that we often ask people. So what was it about this house? How did you find this house? What was it about this house, of all the houses you could see today, that caused you to want to stop in? What kinds of things? Would somebody like to role play with me? I'll be the agent, and you can be the open house guest. Would somebody be my open house guest and role play with me?
Okay, I will.
All right, Miriam. All right, you're going to be my open house guest. So you walk in, and I welcome you. Miriam, welcome to my open house. It's so great to see you. What was it about this house that caused you to want to stop in today?
Two things. This house was close to the high school, and is also a lower price than the ones around.
Lower price than the ones around?
Yeah, lower price than the ones that are similar to that one. But I know for the pictures that the house has that it needs to be a little bit of fixing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as sold as is, so they may have a little fixing before I can negotiate a little fixing before I move. and no major things, because otherwise they will be selling it as is, right?
And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, that that houses that need a little bit of work were more attractive to you?
They were, because the prices is lower.
Okay. So 2 techniques there, guys. It's just an open house guest just coming through. And again, thank you for participating in that, Miriam, and just playing with me. When she said, and when I asked her what was it about this house that caused you to stop in here, and she said it looked as though the price was lower than the other ones around. And I reflected back the last 3 words. The prices were lower, with a question. And then she talked more about, yeah, it was lower than the other ones. And it looks like they need a little bit more fixing and a little bit more work, and perhaps I can negotiate a different deal. And I reflected back with a summary statement. It sounds like a house with that needs a little bit of work is something that was attractive to you. That's a summary mirror. And she goes on to say, and she talks more and she expands more. And so in this interaction, by mirroring those 2 things, what's actually happening is she's feeling a different level of connection to me than she would had I just simply started to ask the same old questions. What was it about this house? Are you working with an agent? Have you seen any other houses before? Is this your first open house? Those are interesting tidbits of information, but there's nothing being reflected back to her, which means our ability to connect in a very short, compressed time, like an open house tour. I want to build rapport as quickly as I can because I only get 3 or 5 minutes with you. So I'm going to reflect more when I hear those opportunities. When I hear her make a statement that I can reflect back with the last 3 words question or the last 3 word statement, or she says something that I think is relevant that I can reflect back. It sounds like what you're saying is this. Then she can feel a sense of connection and heard those mirror neurons kick in. And to Dave's question before, why would we do this? Because I'm trying to build rapport as quickly as I can in this environment because I don't have a lot of time. Does that make sense? What we'll do otherwise, which isn't terrible, but what we'll do otherwise is we'll have our pre-listed set of questions. How long have you been looking? Have you been working with another agent? And all those questions are providing information, but they're not building rapport. The reason why I think open houses turned out to be the big cash cow for my business was that I was better practiced at building connection in a short period of time by mirroring and matching these kinds of vocal patterns. And I found that I was able to convert more guests that would stick with me, that would take my follow-up calls. That's what I want you to learn how to do, is to learn these tools so that when you don't have a lot of time, you can mirror and match, build rapport, make it a better chance that you're going to be able to stay connected. Give me some, what questions do you have around this in a couple minutes that we've got here?
Al, I was just thinking that using both questions or both methods helps you uncover more. Because I saw you use the last 3 words to elicit one response, and then dig deeper by summarizing and repeating back. Not so much repeating, then by summarizing, rephrasing instead.
You know, Scott, I'm glad you noticed that. And I chose to go last 3 words first because I didn't know much information. It's hard for me to summarize what I think I'm hearing when I haven't heard much. And so I want to get her to talk more. The last 3 word summary invites people to talk more. Remember, it's the proxy for help me understand that. It's the proxy for tell me more about that. And in the very beginning, as I asked her a question, what was it that caused you to come to this open house? I was listening for a statement that I could summarize that way to get her to talk more about what mattered to her so that I could summarize back, I think I'm understanding this, a different kind of mirror. But I got more meat to work with because I started with the last 3 word summary. Follow the logic on how that hangs together. And guys, this takes practice. It takes A, understanding, but B, it takes practice. It takes practice to be able to listen on 2 levels and start to say, I'm hearing what you're saying, because if all I'm doing is listening for the opportunity to respond back and I don't really hear what she's talking about, that's not connecting at a very good level either, right? And so this dual level of listening for content, this is what you're saying. I understand what you're communicating. And B, I'm now also thinking about which tool am I going to use to build this reflection? How am I going to hit these mirror neurons so that in the limited window of time we've got, you're going to feel more connected to me than you felt with anybody else that you met at an open house today. Because they're going to ask you unmirrored question, unmirrored question, unmirrored question. Now, where we're going to go tomorrow, because it's almost 3 o'clock and we do have to wind down. This is why we do these in 2 days, because it takes a little time to work with these. I hope you come back tomorrow. I hope you don't start to say, this is just too scientific. This is just too mumbo jumbo. When you really learn how to master this kind of communication, it will change how you influence people, not just in your business, but in your world. Where we're going to go tomorrow is we're going to come back and play with these conversations again. We're going to go back more into, we're going to spend more time in breakouts. We're going to listen for two other things. What we're going to listen for is we're going to start to match. We're going to start to match. These are mirroring exercises we did today. Tomorrow we're going to match, and we're going to match rate of speech. We're going to match volume. We're going to match intonation. As people start to get excited and get louder, we're going to get louder. And as they get quieter, we're going to get quieter. That's a matching exercise and a powerful one. And then my hope is that we're going to have enough time to talk about this other really high level mirroring and matching that has to do with visual, with representational style. And what do I mean by that? I mean that people tend to experience the world typically in one of three ways. They tend to be visual people. They tend to be what we call auditory people. They hear things, the word, or kinesthetic, action-oriented people. And what we want to make sure of is that when we are talking to a visual person, that we use back visual language. An auditory person, we use back auditory language. Here's how that sounds in a quick 30-second practical way. If I'm talking to Dave and I'm presenting something for Dave to consider and he says, I don't know, I just can't picture that. I can't picture that. I don't see it. These are visual representations. Seeing, I don't picture, I don't see. And my response needs to be a visual response. Let me show you what I mean. As opposed to, if I said to Dave and I presented something and he says, you know, something just doesn't sound right about that. Or something feels wrong. Something doesn't sound right is an auditory representation. Something feels wrong is a kinesthetic representation. And I've got to respond back in kind. If I was to say to Dave, who presented a visual representation, I presented something for him to consider, and he says, I just can't picture doing that. And I responded back, let me show you. I'm in sync. It's visual. If I responded back, let me tell you about it. I responded a visual with an auditory. This is a little more esoteric. We're going to spend a little bit more time with this. This is a later skill, but I want to introduce it here to start to listen, to get in the pattern of listening. Can I hear that kind of language in people? Because when somebody says something doesn't feel right, and I say, let me tell you, or let me show you, as opposed to let me walk you through, physical representation becomes physical representation. If I'm a mismatch there, what will happen is people will say, they will feel disconnected. They will feel a lack of rapport. And it's subtle, but when you learn how to put these three things together, mirroring back with, it sounds like, I think this is what I'm hearing, the last three words, mirroring back visual language with visual language, and then matching pace, tone, and volume. When you can get your arms around these three techniques, you will build rapport very quickly. And people won't know what it is about being in that little tour with you that caused you to be the person that they felt way the most comfortable with, but you're the person who they're going to want to talk to again. So it's almost 3 o'clock. Give me a couple ahas for today. Any light bulbs for today? Any questions that you still have? Understand that at 3 o'clock, I'm going right into an office hour. Different Zoom channel, but you can go right into an office hour and ask any other questions that you've got. But give me any ahas or light bulbs or takeaways from anything we talked about today.
If you kind of follow with like naturally what comes. I think it's easier to build the repo, and just like in general, it just connects you better.
Yeah, it does. It helps you connect better. And the very first step, we said there's 4 things we're trying to do in influential communication. We're trying to quickly build rapport and trust, and then create clarity, and then facilitate a decision, and then take action. It starts with building trust. Now, if you've already got trust, if you're talking to your mom and trust is already there, then you don't have to pay attention to these techniques so much, because the trust is already there. You can move right into creating clarity. You can move right into facilitating a decision. But for people you don't know, we've got to put the right time and energy into doing it and building the trust right out of the gate. And these are one of several tools that I'm going to give you to learn how to build trust, is these mirroring and matching tools.
I think they're very, very important. I personally feel that, it just makes the base so strong in a relationship with like your clients, or even in general,